Thank you. Okay, so welcome everyone to the launch. To the launch webinar of the Relanza project. So this is our English session. So just a quick reminder, we'll host the Spanish session tomorrow. So it's a pleasure to have you here from all around the world. So thank you for your interest in Relanza and in what is, I'm sure, will be a thought-provoking talk from our guest speaker, Professor Ben Moorhouse. Okay, so you see on the screen, okay, this is our website. So Relanza is a project founded by the Directorate of Knowledge Transfer at the Universidad Internacional de La Rioja, UNIR. And this project brings together members of the, members of the research group, Prodigy, okay, and also of the language curriculum SIG from the British Association for Applied Linguistics. So you can find more information about the team here in this section. So, apart from me, myself, the coordinator of the project, we have from UNIR, we have Aaron Pérez, also from UNIR, Vicent Beltrán and Nuria Edo from Universitat Jaume I, Darío Vanegas from University of Edinburgh, and then we have Thomas Jones and Sofia Salkowski. Sorry, Sofia. Yes, I right, Thomas? Thank you. From University of Strathclyde. Is that okay? Okay, good. Thank you. So, so this is our team. Relanza is a pioneering international project that seeks to transform foreign and second language teaching through an innovative pedagogy approach aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, specifically the SDG 4, quality education. So as you can see in the description, okay, of our proposal, okay, so it particularly focuses on two key targets, right? So prompt education that supports sustainable development, human rights, and cultural and linguistic diversity, and increase the number of qualified teachers and education professionals capable of integrating these approaches into their practices. So this project is oriented towards key decision makers then, so in the field of education, in service and pre-service teachers, curriculum designers and creators of educational content in the field of language education. So the project, let's say, brings together educational research, digital technology, and social engagement to deliver practical, accessible, and globally relevant resources. So what makes Relanza unique is its technological innovation. Well, we've created a bilingual AI-powered podcast. So we use AI for automatic dubbing of the 6 episodes, 3 original in English and 3 in Spanish, making the series full viable both in English and Spanish. So each episode additionally is accompanied by 2 resources, also aligned with its topic, the topic of the episodes, and available also in English and Spanish. So a chapter of practical guide with ready-to-use teaching proposals, and an interactive material, online material. Designed with Geniali to prompt reflection on some of the aspects covered in the podcast contents. So all resources are released the 3rd Friday of each month from October through March. So stay tuned. And we'll also be publishing the project newsletter shortly. So now we're going to present the podcast. So Dario, sorry, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And I've had the pleasure of talking about the language curriculum and different aspects with world-leading scholars. And if you go to like Spotify or Apple Podcast or YouTube, you will already find the first podcast, the first chat that we had. And in this case, I spoke to Fernando Trujillo Saez from the University of Granada. And with Fernando, we talked about digitalization in the language curriculum. And as Merche explained, the original podcast was recorded in Spanish, and then through the help of AI, people can access it in English as well. And there will be more podcasts. So please stay tuned, watch this space to hear more about the discussions that we've had around different aspects of AI, such as multimodality or English as a medium of instruction, etc. Over to you, Merche.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Dario. Now let me move to, sorry, I lost my screen. 1 second. All right, now. So as you can see here, we have different sections. So we give instructions or ideas. First, introduce the topic of, in this case, digitalization. And then we give practical ideas, right? Both theoretical keys, but very brief section, but fundamental of, aspects to understand the topic, right? And then we have, aspects, more practical aspects about our responsible digitalization and ideas to reflect on the curriculum planning reflection, different activities that you can, develop, right, with the students, and also for your reflection, and also develop in class, right? And the last section is, well, some ideas also to use the podcast as a teaching resource in your classes, right? And this is the structure that all the chapters, right, will have. Okay. So now, Tomasz, over to you to explain the GenAI. Let me, sorry, first share the screen so that you can show the participants, okay, what we have done on the first one.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'll just take a couple of minutes to introduce GenAI. For those of you who don't know what GenAI is, it's a platform that we are using in Relantha for interactive quizzes. GenAI is a web-based tool that lets you create interactive and visually engaging materials such as quizzes, infographics, presentations, escape rooms. It's really, really cool. All of these modes invite users to explore rather than just read and watch. And I think we chose GenAI because it supports innovation and participation, which are the two of the main aims of Relantha. And I think the tool allowed us to design dynamic learning experiences that encourage reflection and agency, not just passive information delivery. So we believe it's accessible, it's multilingual, and sustainable. Everything is hosted online, and materials can be reused and adapted easily by teachers. So you can see that Mercedes is just demonstrating how you can enter the GenAI quiz from the Output tab. It's important to remember that the very first time you do it, you should create an ID that ideally you stick to, because we can then track your engagement and you don't need to register. So yeah, it's a quick look with the episode 1 GenAI quiz, which is linked to today's theme, which is the digitalization and language curriculum. But then later on, you will see that each episode will include a few short interactive questions, like this one, for example. So when you click an option, you sometimes get a feedback. There is no right or wrong. It really allows you to capitalize on what you listened to in the podcast or what you read in the practical guide. So the questions kind of are based on the input from both of these previously described outputs. So yeah, it's really, really cool. I think to summarize, it's an easy creative tool that helps you reflect and have fun with the content.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Thomas. So we hope you find all these resources interesting, and both for you and also for your students. So now I think it's time to give the floor to Ben. So, Daddy, over you.
Thank you, everyone. And let me introduce our guest speaker for this launching event. And Professor Benjamin Luc Moorhouse is an associate professor in the Department of English, City University of Hong Kong, China. He has extensive experience as a primary school English language teacher. He has worked for the Educational Bureau of Hong Kong Baptist University and the University of Hong Kong. Has received several teaching awards, including the President's Award for Outstanding Performance in Individual Teaching from Hong Kong Baptist University in 2023. His research focuses on the lived experiences, competencies, and professional learning of language teachers and teacher educators. Currently, he is exploring the impact of generative AI on language teaching and learning. He has published widely in international journals, including TESOL Quarterly, Applied Linguistics Review, System, RELC Journal, and the ELT Journal. His latest book is called Generative Artificial Intelligence and Language Teaching, published with Cambridge University Press this year, 2025. According to Stanford University, Benjamin was in the top 2% of cited scholars worldwide from 2022 to 2025. Benjamin, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you here with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the invitation to talk with you guys today. And thank you so much. I've actually learned a lot already from you guys before I even started talking, which is wonderful. And I think this initiative is fantastic. So I'm glad I get to be a part of this launch event. I've been given half an hour, so I'm going to try my best to use that wisely. So there might be a few slides that I might gloss over as I go through because of the time. But if there is any information you want about any of the things that I talk about, feel free to ask me at the end or send me an email as well. So, I just learned that actually, you've been using auto translation already as part of the platform that you developed. But I've been playing around with this as well. So this is me using one of these tools. So just quickly look at this and then think.
Hola a todos y bienvenidos a mi oficina en Hong Kong. Solo quería hacer este video para presentarme. Soy el profesor Benjamin Luc Moorhouse y estoy emocionado de hablar con ustedes hoy.
So when we watch this, what does it make you think about? And for me, it creates a lot of wow questions in my mind about what this might mean for our ability to connect and engage with people from different backgrounds in different communities with different languages from ourselves. But it also creates a lot of concerns and worries about how do we assess our learners when these tools are available. How do we motivate our learners when they see the capabilities of these tools to mediate a language connection points, different speakers from different languages communicating with each other, and how can we also recognize variety of English when students can simulate this, and these tools often conform them to specific norms or standards that might be different from the Englishes that they want to use or that are within their communities. So it creates lots and lots of questions, I think, that as teachers, we need to be kind of trying to understand and trying to unpick, so we can kind of help our learners to kind of understand and unpick these questions as well. So it's not just these kinds of tools. There's also a large number of other kinds of innovations that are happening in this space. It's creating a very complex landscape. So in this talk, I'm going to start by looking at that landscape, where we are with AI. I'm then going to introduce the framework that perhaps helps guide us when we're thinking about what knowledge we need or what skills we need or what attributes we need in order to be able to teach effectively in a world with these tools. I'll discuss each element, and then I'll have some final thoughts about how do we teach languages in the world of AI. So it seems like AI is now everywhere and able to do everything. We have Google changing the way that it presents information. In the past, it presented information as a series of links to websites that had relevant information to our queries. It now amalgamates all that information into a AI-generated summary and then links from that. We have AI translation in social media platforms and instant messaging platforms that allow us to communicate with others without having to know each other's languages. Here's an example from me buying a car insurance for mainland China, where the agent uses fully Chinese and I use fully English, yet we're able to understand each other. We have these new wearable technologies where AI translation tools are being embedded in them and also augmenting the realities. So the way that we get information, the way we interact, the way we create, are all being shaped by generative AI. This is all happening in the kind of space of a huge interest in these technologies and a huge hype cycle around these technologies as well. Whenever we're seeing new tools coming out, we see a huge increase in interest, huge increase in hype, and a lot of articles talking about how these are going to revolutionize what we do, how these may change how we are, and how we might be getting that bit closer to kind of the singularity, the kind of AI tool that is smarter than us, can work independently, and no longer needs humans to be in control of what they do. Yet in reality, what we see is more disruption than we do see the hype realization. So as these tools have these potential, at the same time, they also create a lot of challenge for our existing digital spaces. So here's just a few examples of some of the kinds of challenges they create for us. We see things like AI-generated images swamping or flooding social media sites or places like Pinterest, making it harder to find images that are created by other humans that we might be looking for. We see sites like Amazon being flooded with AI-generated content, making it harder to find relevant books that we might be looking for. We see AI images flooding social media sites. We see AI videos flooding social media sites, which are confusing our senses and disorientating how we understand the world. And even within our fields, we're seeing that people are using AI to kind of create new ways of making meaning, but at the same time, this is disrupting our current ones. So we see this hype. At the same time, we see this kind of reality. At the moment, we're seeing a lot more of this kind of AI being used in ways that perhaps is not enhancing our lived experiences than we perhaps are that it is enhancing at this current moment.
Oh, that.
Here's an example of that. So I don't know how many of you have been to Hong Kong, but here is 4 images. 2 of these images are generated by AI, and 2 of them I found from websites that I trust to be authentic. And at first look, it's very, very difficult to be able to tell which ones are which. Now, of course, we can actually go to these sites and we can see for ourselves which ones might be real and which ones may not be real. But if we're actually unfamiliar with those environments, unfamiliar with those places, it becomes that much more difficult to be able to interpret that. So we're kind of living this world again where traditional things where we could generally trust, that trust is becoming harder to maintain, and we're kind of having our realities distorted. Can you tell which ones are really Hong Kong? You can write in the chat. Any ideas? To be honest, I've forgotten myself. I think if I remember, it's B and D are the real images of Hong Kong, but I can't actually remember now because I've also forgotten myself, even though I live in the city. I can probably look carefully and know, but you can see this challenge. This becomes even more challenging perhaps with historical images. Here's some that perhaps very obviously AI generated with one that's authentic. But if we're unfamiliar with the location or we prompt the tools effectively, we might be able to create images that also disorientate and confuse, and this can kind of rewrite how we understand history or how people engage with history as well. Us having the knowledge we have means that we can interpret this, but others who may not have this knowledge may struggle to do so. So the current reality is very complex. So this means that our language teachers need to know quite a lot of things in order to be able to navigate the reality of this AI-generated world. So I've kind of conceptualized a framework. This is built on the work of others, where I try to kind of conceptualize this kind of the competencies we might need in order to be able to kind of feel comfortable to be able to integrate AI and to be sure that we can support our students to develop what they need to be able to kind of function in a world where AI is embedded in that world. So the first aspect is that teachers need to know about the inner workings, features, and affordances and limitations of these tools. The second one is they need to use AI, need to know how to use AI to enhance their language teaching. So it shouldn't just be a substitute, but also enhancing their language teaching. So students are getting a better, more enriched experience with the use of AI, not just a substitute for the teacher. That they know how to use these in their other work as well, because these tools are not just e-learning tools. They're tools that are embedded in different kinds of workflows, things like generating emails, communicating with parents, are all writing reports, are all aspects of teachers' work that AI might be facilitating. They need to have a really good understanding of how to use these tools responsibly, ethically, safely, morally, and legally, and also whether they can or not. In some situations, they may not be able to use them at all because of these reasons as well. So those need to be aware of. And they need to be able to prepare their students. And this is what makes teachers unique, is that we're not just responsible for our own knowledge, but we're also responsible for our developing our students' knowledge. So as we use these tools, we also have to be conscious of what our students are learning about these tools and how do we help to scaffold them to be able to use these tools in ways that are responsible, ethical, moral, legal, the ones that are ways that enhance their learning, enhance their lived experiences, and that they have enough knowledge to be able to make good decisions about the use of these tools, and also good decisions about how other people use the tools on them. Because again, these tools are being embedded into many, many different environments where our students are engaging with them, and they may not be even conscious they're doing so because of the way that they are kind of very automatically embedded, and the students are, they're in the spaces where students are commonly going to, like social media, like search engines and things like this. So let's go through each one by one. Some parts I might go into detail, some parts I might gloss a little bit. If you want more information, feel free to let me know. So the first one is AI technology proficiency. So there's a few things that teachers need to know. One is they need to understand the kind of wide range of tools that are available. So of course we have our normal kind of large language models or conversational AIs like ChatGPT, Cloud, DeepSeek, that's very popular in mainland China, and other models as well, like Grok. We also have our visual, audio, and video generators, and sometimes large language models have these capabilities, and most visual, audio, and video generators have large language models embedded in them, so we can use natural language to interact with them. But then we also have, which is becoming increasingly common now, is tools with embedded generative AI features. Okay, so this is where a tool may be traditionally used in a particular domain, suddenly has an AI feature that automates part of those processes. And then we have specialist tools like Magic School and School AI that have been they built an interface on top of a large language model that kind of restricts the features to the kinds of functions that a teacher might use or want. So we have a wide range of tools. I'm going to clip those because of the time. Another key thing that we need to be conscious of is that AI tools do not understand the way we understand. So they've been developed in a way that are very intuitive. They feel like we're interacting with other sentient beings as the way they react or work with us. And you can find many examples online of people thinking they're talking to sentient beings here, but they're not. They're bound by their algorithms and their data. And if their data has something wrong in it, they won't judge that data. They will just produce inaccurate data. Similarly, if the algorithm gets tweaked or changed, they will produce things in different ways. So they don't have that rich lived experience to draw upon when they're giving outcomes. They can't think, does that make sense? Like humans do. Does this fit with how I understand the world? If their data changes, their responses change. If the algorithm changes, their responses change. So the way they work is very, very different. So they do not understand the way we do. A big issue, which is great thanks to the European Union, they're trying to address this, is that a lot of AI tools are black boxes. So we don't know what data is in there. We don't know what they're drawing from. Therefore, we don't know necessarily why they're coming out with the kind of responses that they are. And also, we don't know if we don't know what kind of biases are in that data. So we can't then mediate that. So we need to know that. So when we do get responses, we may understand why we get the responses we do. So an example might be AI generators and AI image generators, which are very great for demonstrating this kind of thing. So here's an example. I use GPT image 1 to generate an image of 14 primary school teachers, and we got to see some biases here. Majority of them are white, majority of them are female, majority of them have very clean teeth. We can see some different characteristics here that generally suggest bias in the data set towards primary school teachers being female, being young, right, being white, and things like this, which doesn't necessarily fit the global trend, although we can see that there's still a majority of female teachers. It's not 2 to 14, isn't 2 to 12 ratio like would be suggested in that image. Another thing that teachers need to be conscious of is that these tools use statistical probability. So that means the output is not fully predictable or replicable. That means each time we interact with a tool, they're making another kind of statistical, a very complex statistical equation or statistical task they're engaged in to come up with a response. That means each time it can be slightly different, okay, because they'll be drawing on different data and each time, and perhaps going through a slightly different process each time. So I like to use this clip to demonstrate this. It's from the fantastic movie of Mitchell's versus the Machines. That's right, it's the very end.
What? Is that a dog or... Dog, pig, dog, pig, dog, pig, pig, dog, loaf of bread, system error.
So as we can see, the AI is confused about whether it's a dog or a pig, and it can't differentiate between them, and then it kind of has the system error. So we can see how they do this. So one time it might come up with dog, another time pig. 95% of the time it might be dog, but 5% of the time it might be pig because of the way that it gathers the data and interprets the data and provides the response. Not all generative AIs are equal as well. And one of the biggest things I found is that we talk about this as a generic thing. Same as humans. We talk about humans as a generic thing, and we talk about generative AI as a generic thing. And when we compare them, we talk about humans and AI as somewhat generic. But we know there's huge diversity in both groups. Humans are very diverse. AI is also very diverse. And we've got to be conscious of that, again, when we're thinking about use of AI as teachers, right? We need to know things about the data sets they're drawing from. We need to know things about how the algorithms work. We need to understand concepts like context window. We need to think about the different functionalities of these tools, how much tuning we can do as users of these tools, and how much that tuning is real tuning and how much that tuning is contrived tuning. Things so like DeepSeek pretending that it reasons, but actually it doesn't. It pretends to reason. Things like different interfaces, which ones are natural, which ones are less natural to us, why are they developed that way, the kind of costs involved. So we know that some models are much more expensive than others because of the way they work or how they've been designed. The accessibility of these tools, like which contexts have them. So for example, in Hong Kong, OpenAI never released ChatGPT to the general public, so we don't have access directly to ChatGPT. Things like internet access, knowledge cutoff. What does that mean? If they have direct access to the internet, how does that change how they respond to us? So things like the Google has that, whereas knowledge cutoff, maybe the data is more curated by humans, so we have more control over that, or more conscious of at least where that data might be coming from. And then things like different content controls and filters. So some of them interpret copyright law differently, some of them interpret intellectual property laws differently, some of them interpret things like obscenity differently, and then how we use those to aware of those things as well. So for example, here's an example here of asking GPT-4 to create an image of Winnie the Pooh dressed as Buzz Lightyear. It won't give the image because it has controls in place or filters in place to prevent it from breaking copyright laws. I'll show you later how other models actually don't worry about that at all. They happily create copyrighted images. And then prompting currently is very important because it allows us to get what we want from these tools. They don't understand us. They don't understand our context. They don't understand what we're asking for. So we need to provide that information to get what we want. So a lot of issues people have with these tools is because they're not necessarily prompting them correctly. Another key thing that I didn't include in my original frameworks, but I think is very important to think about today, particularly as AI has been consolidated in so few hands, is that the big tech companies that control these tools have their own agendas. So we have to be very conscious as end users that we are not being necessarily led down particular paths of how these tools want us to be using them. So here's a video here that I recommend you watch, which is an advertisement for Apple Intelligence that kind of suggests that we should be using AI in ways that are unethical and inappropriate, which can then kind of seep into the way we might think of these tools and how we might use these tools. So this kind of knowledge becomes very important as well for teachers, because as end users, we see this product, we think it's neutral, but actually it's embedded with the ideologies of the companies. And they have their own reasons for wanting to automate certain tasks and include them in our processes because that benefits them and their shareholders. And the more reliant we are on them in those processes, the more likely we are to pay for these services. Okay. So what about pedagogical capabilities then? So what skills and knowledge do teachers need to use AI tools to enhance their language teaching? So I think in this case, it's about thinking about the different utilities of these tools. What kind of things can they do for us as teachers that would have been difficult for us to do in the past because of time limits, because of lack of access to materials, because of contextual constraints, those kinds of things. So I'm just going to gloss through some ideas that we can think about. So I think one potential use of these tools is knowledge resource and developer. Teachers are generally very busy. We are very blessed to have a large number of good writers like Dario and others who are creating fantastic books for teachers to access. But as we know, many teachers outside of kind of formal education environments will rarely access these kinds of resources. So large language models can be a source of information for them. So things like comparing languages, exploring methodologies, getting information on topics, thinking about different ways of teaching a particular idea or a particular concept or a particular language item. These tools can help to kind of broaden teachers' awarenesses and provide kind of niche and specific information that can help them to kind of plan better and support students better. So for example, it could be something like, can you suggest 5 festivals from around the world that will interest Turkish secondary school learning English, for example? And then it can come up with some different festivals, which might be different from the ones that are in the textbook or we've been using because the teacher themselves is not aware of so many different festivals. And then that can lead to further exploration and maybe some more interesting learning opportunities for the students. We can also think about involving in profession in planning. So how can we integrate it into those processes so they can help us to kind of plan better and engage better. So thinking about perhaps gaps in our lesson planning, gaps in our ideas, generating materials that support our lesson implementation, things like that. So here's an example where we took one of the Tomatina Festival and then created a text about that and then some questions about that. So that could become a resource that teacher can use in the classroom to teach about that festival. Of course, it's always good to double check the information with other sources as well. Personalized learning, so interacting with these tools in different ways. Sometimes you can customize bots to do that as well, interacting with famous characters, famous people, things like that, through role play, so they can engage, try out different languages, see if that works. What kind of responses do they get if they use different language? I think a key use is differentiated instruction, because this is something we know is pedagogically very valuable for students who are learning language, but often we struggle to implement because of difficulty getting resources and materials. So getting these tools to create materials at different levels can be something teachers can do. Providing choice for things like choice boards, developing choice boards, things like this, giving the teacher some inspiration of the different activities the teacher could use in the classroom for different learning objectives can be also something that, and then helping to build those resources as well. And customizing bots. So creating bots from scratch, reducing the randomness by tailoring a bot to the needs can be really, really good. So developing role-playing bots and things like this that students engage with, that then they stick within that role so that students don't get kind of go off on a tangent and things like that. Creative assignments. This can be really fun. So getting students to create different things that look professional. Tools like Canva now have embedded AI features that allow for automation of particular parts. So this can create more opportunities for creative outputs of students learning Englishes and English learning or other language learning as well. So here's an example. So this is making a TikTok video using photos from a visit to Disneyland, and then having automation of the music and then the clips, the captions. Here's an example that I did with my daughter. We were playing a game called Tom Gates. She wanted to make her own version of the game, and then we used a GPT image 1 to make those cards look more professional, so they could be then printed and played. So the next idea that teachers need to be conscious of is kind of the risks. So it's great to see all these fantastic utilities, I think, but I think they need to also be conscious of the risks. So they're not inadvertently exposing students to risks, and also making sure that use of these tools fits with their own kind of moral, ethical understandings, and they don't inadvertently break any legal requirements as well. So there's a few things we need to be conscious of. Of course, accuracy gets talked about a lot, hallucinations. So this is something we have to be very conscious of when we're using these tools with learners, because we don't want them to start to think of these tools as authoritative. We want them to be conscious of the risks of these tools and be double checking to make sure that what they're receiving from these tools is accurate information. Like I mentioned earlier, there can be bias. Their data sets includes historical bias information, and also even the way that we interact with them can introduce bias, because the way that we ask questions or the way that we prompt these tools. Privacy can be an issue. Most tools have some disclaimer saying they don't collect the data for training purposes, but of course they do collect the data to give you the response. So how long they keep that information for and what they do with that can be important. And of course, copyright is a big issue, and it's still being debated now in many, many courts around the world. And we can see an example right here. So, different tools will interpret copyright differently. If you ask DALL-E 3, which is OpenAI's model, it won't give you Winnie the Pooh because it's copyrighted. So no matter how many times you ask, it won't give you Winnie the Pooh. But other image generators like Stable Diffusion, Flux Pro happily give you Winnie the Pooh. So how they interpret data, how they interpret copyright, how they interpret intellectual property is also something that we need to be conscious of. Also, the impact of these tools. So I think learner motivation can be one. There's a lot of hype around these tools when it comes to languages. And if that feeds down into our learners, they can start to think, well, what's the purpose of learning language when we are in a world where technology can mediate our language situations. So this is something we may see. Equality of access, just like the digital divide, AI is obviously a divide as well between those who can afford the more expensive advanced models and those that can't. Those that can afford to get the tailored models that scaffold learning compared to those who have to rely on general models that don't scaffold learning, things like this. And then that flooding that I talked about as well. And also language standardization. So tools like voice simulators, they can inadvertently lead to language standardization, because they often push the user to conform to native speaker norms, native speaker ways of speaking. So for example, here's one called else speak, and you can see that it's got confidence is correct. You sound 98% like a native speaker. All right. So this requires this idea that they need to conform to a particular type of English, particular type of language variety. And then we say the same thing with writing evaluators, where they might ask them to conform to a particular variety. So this is one of an article that I wrote, that I failed the language quality when I submitted it to a journal that was had an AI assistive pre-flight tool. Even though I've written a lot of articles, I still failed. So when we get that feedback from me, it's kind of a bit of a laughing moment. I can read through it and check and see what it picked up as wrong. But for others, this could also, this could affect how they write, how they present themselves, how they use language, because they may take this as authoritative, and that they must address this feedback and alter the way that they use language. Okay, a preparation for students for an AI world. Sorry, it's very lots of things to discuss. I hope this is okay. In this way, I think it's about them thinking about what they need. I think the first thing we do is that we're important to start with how can we use them and how should we use them. So this debate about, they obviously have capabilities, but there's also things that we think we should use them for and we shouldn't use them for. And teaching students about that becomes important. My daughter really likes this book, 39 Story Treehouse by Andrew Griffiths. And in that book, there's a Once Upon a Time machine that creates books based on prompts. And it's pre-ChatGPT. So, and in the end, the machine itself thinks it's more intelligent than the writers, and decides it wants to kill the writers because it doesn't see the need for the writers anymore. It's kind of a bit of an apocalyptic idea of AI. But what it tells us is that, we can rely on these tools to create things for us, but if we do that, what do we lose when we do? So these are the kind of debates we have with students. So Warshaw has a framework that I think is pretty good and helps us to understand what they might need. So they need to understand how they work, just like teachers need to know that. They need to understand how to navigate them. They need to understand how to prompt them. They need to understand how to corroborate. So, these are tools. They need to understand that they also have issues with them, just like humans do. And just like you just don't trust a human who says something, we also don't trust an AI. We should always be drawing on our own instinct and then also verifying with other sources to try and get a better understanding, a better picture of what we are being exposed to and things like that. So that kind of critical information literacy is important. And also that we need to give them the kind of moral and ethical understanding of how we should be thinking about using these tools. The tools will always be a temptation. They're a temptation for us. They shortcut process for us. If we have something, perhaps we think, oh, this is a task that I don't find meaningful, let me outsource it to my research assistant, for example, let me outsource it to my AI, for example. Our students have these same kinds of thinkings. So we have to spend a lot of effort to help them to think about why spending effort is important to them and how we should think about this. And we're getting many, many cases of unethical use that we need to, and I'll introduce a couple later that will be useful for you to perhaps think about. So I think a good thing to think about is asking them to think about AI as a guide. So AI is functioning as a guide on the side that's helping them as they go through things. And then promote translanguaging approaches, I find, is also good, because if they have access to these tools and they think they can only use one mode to interact with them, they may not understand the feedback, so they may just accept the feedback. Whereas if they're using the different resources they have, the linguistic resources they have, they may then be able to get better responses from these tools and interact with these tools in ways that can facilitate their learning better. So creating that space for them to use different languages as they interact with these tools. Okay. And then the final part of the framework is professional work of teachers. So this was something that I thought about early on when I was talking about these things, but it seems to be becoming increasingly important because we're getting more and more examples in the working world of people using these tools in the wrong ways, which is creating a lot of issues for other people because of the way they're being used. So for example, this study here from Harvard Business Review talks about two kinds of users and work slop. as destroying productivity. So what it's talking about is like some users are using it meaningfully to advance work, giving tasks, scaffolding them, supporting them. They're giving over parts to the AI tools to construct things, but they're keeping over human oversight. And then other workers are just using it to generate things quickly. And then other people are having to go, what, this doesn't quite make sense. What's this about? How come I don't understand this? Why is this off topic? That kind of thing, which is creating other work for other people because the AI is being used inefficiently or inappropriately in those tasks. And we're getting more and more examples of this. This is an example out of Australia, where Deloitte, the massive consultation firm, somehow submitted a report to the Australian government. They included hallucinations that are generated by AI, including fake references. So within their quality control mechanism, and that obviously didn't get picked up at all. So we've got these kind of cases here. This week we just had a case, Hong Kong U, which is one of the universities I used to work for. This is one of the big universities in Hong Kong, where a paper was published by a PhD student there, co-authored by the supervisor, as well as someone from the government in Hong Kong, that included AI generated references. So we can see this kind of situation where they're not being used professionally, even in these kind of environments where they would expect the literacy to be quite high when it comes to AI, but yet these cases are still coming through.
Ben, apologies.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You've got 1 minute left. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Dario. Perfect. Thank you for that. That's really useful. It felt like I just felt like I was being like it just came from nowhere. It was like a ghost in the room. So my advice to teachers is that we write, evaluate, declare. Like we always have to evaluate. We can't just rush and submit and do. So our professional work, we should always have that kind of critical evaluation as we engage with these tools. So my final thoughts, thank you for that. My final thoughts with how do we teach English in a world of AI? So students are most likely to use AI properly and not rely on AI when they value a task. So I think if we've got to make sure that they understand why this task is useful for them, they have enough time to do the task. We generally outsource if we feel time pressured. They see the task as achievable. Again, we generally outsource if we think the task is something we can't do. The tasks are personal reflective on their lived experiences, because that will then connect them to what they're doing, and they won't necessarily think that they want to give that to an AI to do. They need to work with others in the task, because that requires them to communicate and to compromise and to evaluate. And they are rewarded for the effort, and ideas are not always accuracy. This is particularly true in Asian context, where accuracy is very, very important to performance. And often we neglect to kind of recognize effort and ideas. So it's kind of going back to basics, really. So having that literacy of AI and understanding the competencies, but at the same time remembering what makes a good pedagogical experience for our learners, and kind of blending those two and being conscious of those two. Okay, thank you so much. It's time for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Ben. I've got a question for you from one of our registered participants. I think you partially covered it in some of your slides, but someone was interested, how would you define sustainable AI? And I suppose it's a question to define your stance, whether you see this sustainability as a technical issue, as a pedagogical goal, or maybe ethical responsibility, or all of those?
Well, sustainability is an overused term these days, right? It's used for all sorts of things. So if we look at sustainability from the kind of like social, the kind of environmental aspect, I think we're still a long way off from understanding what that might be. We're still having issues around how these models work, and we see these big tech companies setting up huge data centers all around the world, which are very draining of resources, water, energy, and things like this. So at the moment, we don't necessarily have sustainable AI in a kind of environmental consideration. So I think that's something we don't have yet. When it comes to sustainable in our kind of pedagogical practices, I think sustainable AI is probably when we have the teacher as the key instrument of everything still, and the teachers drawing on these resources to support their practice. And I think that can be sustained, because the teachers constantly ensuring something that they embed when they helps them to achieve their pedagogical goals. Yeah, Does that answer the question? Is it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
very much. I think we potentially have time for one short question.
Sure.
Merche or Daria, do you think?
Yeah, sure. We have time. Yeah, Thomas, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was interested by what you talked about when you mentioned the black box nature of AI. Do you think the black box nature of AI could paradoxically encourage more collaborative reflection amongst teachers, for instance? I don't know, maybe how they share prompts or results to uncover some hidden biases together?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, for sure. It's fantastic for that. So one of the tasks that I do with my students is I give them a image generator. There's a free one called Hotpot AI, so I usually use that one with them, and then I ask them to kind of choose a country and choose a job. Choose a country and ask it to prompt about jobs. So like a worker in Zimbabwe or something, or a worker in Spain, or a worker in Japan. And then it will always generate kind of very stereotypical kinds of images, you know, and that way they kind of understand the kind of biases in these things, these tools. So I think that can be really useful for them. So to kind of, that's a way to build up that competency by exposing them to how these tools work. I mean, there is some benefits, I think, for language teaching as well around that black box and the kind of statistical probability, because it also brings in kind of a bit of randomness, which is also true of human-to-human interactions. So we can capitalize on that a bit if we make students conscious that that's the case. So, you know, they can prompt them, and each time they'll get a different response. That's kind of like humans.
Yeah.
So that's kind of good when it comes to language teaching. But if we're using it that way, that's good. But then if we try to then rely on it for accurate information, then that's not so good. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Thank you so much for your answers, and I'll pass it over to Merche.
No worries.
Thanks, Tomasz. Well, the warmest thanks to Ben for that stimulating talk, and well, thank you so much for that. And before we sign off, 3 quick takeaways, right? Explore the resources, mark your calendars. New materials are released next week about artificial intelligence in the LBS curriculum, and we have the pleasure to interview Victor Lim from Singapore. And stay connected. So we'll be publishing our project newsletter shortly. So on behalf of the Relanza team, thank you for spending this time with us, and we look forward to seeing what you do with these ideas. So please let us know how the resources land on your classrooms and contexts. So thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Good luck, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.